Welcome to Wellness Waves, everyone. Today, we're diving into a topic that I know will surprise many of you, and honestly, it should make you angry. We're going to talk about the 10 vitamins and minerals you should never, ever take. And not just because they're ineffective, Ben, but because they can be very, very dangerous.
Whoa, Alex. Dangerous? That's a strong claim. I thought vitamins were supposed to be good for us, helping us fill nutritional gaps. Most people just grab a multivitamin off the shelf, assuming it's beneficial.
Exactly, and that's the core of the problem. I'm genuinely surprised they even allow some of these ingredients to be sold in your vitamins. And I think I know why. Simply put, they're incredibly cheap to produce. This means huge profit margins for companies.
So it comes down to money.
Often, many of the big vitamin companies out there are owned by big pharma, big chemical companies, and even the junk food industry. Their primary motive isn't always your health. It's the best possible margins. And that leads to some really questionable ingredients.
That's a sobering thought. So, what's the first ingredient we need to be wary of? Give us the list, Alex.
All right, let's jump right in. Number 1, synthetic vitamin A. You should never, ever consume synthetic vitamin A.
Synthetic? I just thought vitamin A was vitamin A. How do I even know if it's synthetic?
Good question. Here's the problem. Synthetic vitamin A has to be converted into the active form in your body, and that conversion is not very efficient. What that means is you get a buildup of this synthetic vitamin A in your liver and fat cells, and that can be very, very toxic.
Toxic? What kind of toxicity are we talking about?
If a pregnant woman has too much synthetic vitamin A, the child is susceptible to birth defects. It can also interfere with vitamin D and vitamin K2, increasing your risk for fractures because it contributes to bone loss. And here's another kicker. They put synthetic vitamin A in a lot of skin products, like lotions and things like that. When that synthetic vitamin A gets exposed to UV radiation, you significantly increase its carcinogenic effect.
Wow, that's really alarming, especially the skin product part. So, how do we identify it on a label?
You'll usually identify it by names like Retinyl Palmitate or Retinyl Acetate. Instead, get your vitamin A from natural sources like egg yolks, liver, or cod liver oil. We need vitamin A for the internal mucous membranes of our sinuses, lungs, and colon. We need it for vision, especially in the dark, and our immune system depends on it. So vitamin A is super important, but only in its natural form. Let's move to number 2. Synthetic beta-carotene.
Beta-carotene? Isn't that vitamin A? Like in carrots?
No, it is not, even though some people think it is. Beta-carotene has to turn into the active form of vitamin A, and you would have to consume a tremendous amount of carrots to get even close to the RDAs for the active form of vitamin A.
The real issue is that they make synthetic beta-carotene from coal tar petroleum. Petroleum? That sounds industrial.
It is. And this is why when large studies were done on the synthetic version of beta-carotene, they saw a shocking increase in lung cancer in smokers by about 18%.
Why specifically in smokers?
Smokers already have a lot of damage in their lungs, making them very vulnerable and susceptible to cancer. Apparently, the synthetic version of beta-carotene comes in and flips a switch, activating the cancer. The natural version is protective, the synthetic version is not.
It can create serious problems. Next up, number 3. Folic acid.
Folic acid is in everything. Fortified cereals, multivitamins. I thought it was good for preventing birth defects.
Folic acid is different from the active form of B9, which is called folate. Folic acid is another synthetic vitamin. Here's the critical problem with taking folic acid. 30 to 40% of the world population has an issue with a certain gene called MTHFR.
MTHFR. That's a mouthful. What does that gene do?
The simple explanation is that this gene helps you convert folic acid into the active form folate. If you have a problem with that gene, you're not going to do that efficiently. So what happens is you start building up this unprocessed folic acid in your blood.
And what are the risks of that buildup?
We see an increased risk for cancer, a suppressed immune system, and all sorts of symptoms that people might not connect to this issue unless they've had an ENA test and are aware of their gene issue. Many people don't even realize they're consuming it in fortified foods. You want to read the label and make sure you're taking folate, or just consume foods naturally high in folate, like dark leafy green vegetables. Number 4, synthetic B12. The name for that is Cyanocobalamin.
Cyanocobalamin. That sounds suspiciously like cyanide.
It does because it has just a tiny bit of cyanide. This form of B12 is definitely not as bioavailable as the natural form, which is called methylcobalamin. The natural version stays in the body a lot longer compared to this synthetic version.
So it's less effective and has a toxic component. That's concerning.
And here's another issue. In order for the synthetic version to convert to the active form, it requires glutathione. So if you're consuming a lot of cyanocobalamin, and many people are because it's in energy drinks, many food products, and a lot of supplements, it's going to deplete your glutathione.
Glutathione, which is a major antioxidant, right? So you're depleting your body's defenses.
Exactly. Let's say, for example, someone's a smoker. They're already getting chemicals from smoking, including a little bit of cyanide. That can build up with the extra cyanide from B12, creating toxicity, especially if you have genetics that result in poor detox pathways. It's really easy to get the natural version of B12 from red meat or liver. That's where I highly recommend you get it from. Number 5, calcium carbonate.
Calcium carbonate? Isn't that just chalk? I see it as the first ingredient in so many common calcium supplements.
You're right. If you take a look at the first ingredient in a lot of common popular supplements, it is calcium carbonate. That's why the bottle is so heavy. It literally has rocks in it as the first ingredient, which means it's probably the majority of that product. And that's just mind-blowing.
So what's the problem with essentially eating rocks for calcium?
It can actually build up in the body, dumping into the arteries or the kidneys, but that's not even the biggest problem. The biggest problem is it can increase the risk of heart attacks. In nature, with our food supply, you never just eat calcium like this.
So, isolated synthetic calcium is the problem. Where should we get our calcium from?
You should really try to get your calcium from dairy like cheese or yogurt or kefir. You can also get it from certain leafy greens. Calcium is one mineral we have to be very careful of because we don't get rid of it very easily.
And I've heard calcium needs to be balanced with other minerals.
Absolutely. Calcium needs to work with magnesium. So the more calcium you take, you better increase your magnesium to a 1-to-1 ratio. If anyone tells you you need like 10 times more calcium than magnesium, don't believe them. You need a 1-to-1 ratio. And a lot of these one-a-days don't even come close to that ratio, creating more of a magnesium deficiency problem when we're loading up with all this calcium.
We're halfway through our list of 10 vitamins you should never take. Let's pick up with number 6. Iron. Part 2, More Hidden Dangers and the Right Forms. Iron. That's another common supplement, especially for anemia. How can iron be dangerous?
Iron is actually very corrosive and very dangerous to our bodies because we really have no mechanism to get rid of it other than giving blood or, for women, menstruation. It's especially dangerous to men and postmenopausal women. And the type of iron you'll often see in supplements is ferrous sulfate.
Ferrous sulfate. That sounds like rust.
It's literally like rust. Think about this. Approximately 1 out of 200 to 300 people have a condition called hemochromatosis, where this is even more of a problem. Even if they take normal amounts of iron, their body will just hold onto it very, very tightly, leading to dangerous buildup.
So excess iron can accumulate in the body. What are the consequences?
Typically, if you have too much iron, you're at more risk for type 2 diabetes, liver issues, Parkinson's, and Alzheimer's. Other than that, you'd be totally fine. Sarcastic tone. So I highly recommend that you really avoid any supplements with iron or any fortified food with iron.
Even if you're anemic?
Even if you're anemic, I would recommend consuming liver, red meat, or something like that, but I would not recommend a supplement, especially ferrous sulfate. Get your iron from natural foods. Let's move to number 7, Magnesium Oxide.
Magnesium is crucial for so many bodily functions: sleep, muscles, stress. But magnesium oxide? Is that a bad form?
You probably know how important magnesium is, but the form of it is super important. Oxide is a really cheap form. This form only absorbs about 3%. So if a pill was 500 milligrams, you'd only be getting about 20 milligrams from one pill. That's insignificant.
So you'd have to take a ton of it to get any benefit.
And as soon as you start increasing it, you're going to get diarrhea because it pulls a lot of water into the colon. And when you have diarrhea, you flush out other electrolytes. So this is not a good form. You won't get enough because of poor absorption, and if you increase it, you get diarrhea.
What's the best form of magnesium then?
The best form of magnesium is magnesium glycinate. You're going to absorb about 80 to 85%. You're not going to get diarrhea, and you're going to get the benefits of magnesium, which include better sleep, lower cortisol, less muscle spasms, and more energy. Number 8, synthetic vitamin D. The name for this is Ergocalciferol.
Ergocalciferol. I thought vitamin D was vitamin D, and doctors prescribe it all the time.
The way they make this is by radiating fungus or yeast with UV radiation. It's not as potent, and the conversions of synthetic D2, ergocalciferol, to the active form of vitamin D are not nearly as efficient as the natural D3.
So it's less effective, just like some of the other synthetic forms.
Also, the way it's transported is different. There's a protein that delivers vitamin D to the kidney and liver called a vitamin D binding protein. With vitamin D2, it's not connected or bound very strongly compared to D3, so you don't end up getting the same effect as you do with D3.
And of course, the most common doctor prescription for vitamin D is D2, not D3.
And D3 is the natural form we get from the sun, right?
Precisely. I think they can't patent D3 because it's natural. Vitamin D is one of the most important vitamins, and a lot of people are deficient because they don't get enough sun. When you're lacking vitamin D, your immune system suffers. You get bone pain, you get depressed, and many other issues as well. Stick to natural D3. Number 9, omega-6 fats, especially isolated linoleic acid in supplements. Omega-6? Aren't those essential fatty acids? I thought we needed them.
We do need omega-6, but we have way too much in our modern diet. We need a 1-to-1 ratio of omega-6 to omega-3. Guess what? An average person in the US has a ratio of 25 times more omega-6 than omega-3. Omega-6 is very pro-inflammatory, and omega-3 is anti-inflammatory.
So consuming more omega-6 through supplements is just making the problem worse.
Exactly. The average person consumes 25 to 30% of all their calories from seed oils, which are highly inflammatory. You don't need more omega-6. You want to get your omegas from natural sources like fish, cod liver oil, and grass-fed meat. And finally, number 10, copper.
Copper? We need trace minerals. Is this another case of the wrong form or too much?
Listen, we absolutely need copper and zinc and all these trace minerals. But if you're taking the cheap version in higher amounts, it can be very toxic. It's crucial to maintain a proper copper-zinc ratio. We need about 10 times as much zinc to copper. If you're taking a lot of zinc, that can create a copper deficiency. If you're taking a lot of copper without zinc, that can mess up your zinc.
So it's all about balance. What happens if you get too much copper?
Too much copper can flip things from being an antioxidant and actually create oxidation, leading to amyloid plaque in Alzheimer's and inflammation in your brain. In relation to Alzheimer's, they're calling it the new aluminum because aluminum is also toxic to the brain, but so is excess copper. Too much copper in the wrong form ends up accumulating in your brain and in your liver.
So where should we get copper and other trace minerals safely?
Get your trace minerals, especially copper, from shellfish, liver, or dark chocolate. And if you do take copper, make sure you take it with the other trace minerals in the right combination and proper balance. So, there you have it, Ben. 10 vitamins and minerals you should seriously reconsider taking, especially in their common synthetic or isolated forms.
That was an absolute eye-opener, Alex. From synthetic vitamin A interfering with bone health and potentially causing birth defects, to the dangers of folic acid for those with the MTHFR gene, and the cardiovascular risks of calcium carbonate, it's clear that not all supplements are created equal. And the warning about ferrous sulfate iron and excess copper is particularly alarming for long-term health.
Exactly. The biggest takeaway here is that natural is always best. Our bodies are designed to process nutrients from whole foods, where they come in complex, balanced forms. When you isolate them or create synthetic versions, you risk unforeseen and often dangerous consequences.
It really drives home the point that cheap, isolated, or synthetic forms of nutrients can do more harm than good, especially when stacked up against natural sources like organic eggs, grass-fed meat, and leafy green vegetables.
Absolutely. The profit motive often outweighs health concerns in the supplement industry. That's why it's crucial to educate yourself and always opt for food-based nutrients or supplements that use highly bioavailable, natural forms. Always read your labels. Look for terms like folate instead of folic acid, methylcobalamin instead of cyanocobalamin, and magnesium glycinate instead of magnesium oxide.
So, for those listening who might be taking some of these problematic supplements right now, what's the first step?
First, don't panic. Second, carefully check the labels of all your supplements. If you see any of these ingredients, especially the synthetic forms we mentioned, consider consulting with a knowledgeable healthcare professional or switching to a reputable brand that prioritizes whole food or bioavailable forms. Always read your labels.
It makes total sense. This isn't about scaring people away from necessary nutrients, but guiding them towards the right forms that truly support their health and longevity.
Precisely. We need these vitamins and minerals, but we need them in forms our bodies recognize and can utilize safely. Your body is an incredibly intelligent system. Feed it wisely.
Alex, this has been an incredibly informative and, frankly, eye-opening discussion. I think a lot of people's supplement cabinets are about to get a serious overhaul.
My pleasure, Ben. And remember, knowledge is power when it comes to your health. Don't be a victim of cheap, dangerous supplements. Empower yourself by choosing wisely.
That's a powerful message to end on. If you found this discussion as enlightening as I did, please hit that like button, subscribe to Wellness Waves for more truth-telling health content, and leave a comment below telling us which of these 10 vitamins surprised you the most.
And for those interested in understanding magnesium absorption better, I briefly touched on magnesium oxide versus glycinate. I have another video that dives much deeper into the different forms of magnesium and their purposes. Check out the link in the description for that.
Fantastic. Thanks for tuning in to Wellness Waves. Stay healthy, stay informed, and we'll see you next time.